I'm Rene Ritchie, and I'm a tech analyst.
And I'm Georgia Dow, and I'm a psychotherapist.
And welcome to Apple Talk, the podcast where technology meets psychology. And we talk about how Apple and all the related companies like Facebook and Amazon and Google and, sure, Microsoft, how all of them affect our culture and increasingly our lives. And today on the show, we're going to talk about why people get so angry when Apple makes expensive headphones and other things. Also, Google and the controversy over them effectively firing someone who was into ethical AI research and then sort of apologizing after.
Kind of,
a little bit. And then for our bonus topic on Nebula, I'm going to talk about the new so many Marvel and Star Wars shows. And you?
And I'm going to talk about Fitness Plus because I'm excited.
Awesome. We can do Fitness Plus while watching Star Wars. It's going to be amazing.
Okay.
Before we begin, though, for the last many weeks, we've been asking people who are listening on Apple Podcasts to please leave a review and a rating.
Yeah.
And they did.
They did. So I'm going to go
One of you left a 1 star. I saw that. I don't know who it was.
Oh, no. Did they really?
Some hateful person left a 1-star rating. It's just jealousy.
It was probably because of me.
No, it's probably... Yeah, they're so jealous of you.
Oh, that's it.
Yes.
That's right. So one person left a 1. Did they say anything?
No, it was just like a 1 star.
Just a 1 star?
Yeah.
That's cruel.
Yeah, what I'm waiting for is
why they hate it.
Every once in a while, there's like an error, and it exposes the names of the people attached to the reviews and the ratings. And if you just wait long enough, it inevitably happens, and you can see which one of the people.
Which person is the one that did it? We're gonna find you.
It's hilarious.
I see you. I see you. The worst
I'm just curious. I'm not like.
Right, we're not spiteful.
No,
we're Canadian.
not at all.
It doesn't happen. Yeah. But they disliked us enough.
Yes.
To not just dislike us at a 1-star level, but to actually let us know.
It's a well-known YouTube phenomenon that immediately when your video goes live, there are a bunch of people that dislike it. But that means they have to be subscribed with the bell notifications on for every video to be told that the video has gone live. So they go to all that trouble. They subscribe to get the immediate alerts just so they can dislike the video.
Oh, that hurts.
No, it's great because I'm living so rent-free inside their heads that they're willing to go to all that effort just to dislike the video. And I like it because at least it's something.
At least it's something. That's true. At least it's not nothing. You feel something from the podcast, which is better than just being invisible.
Yes.
So even to that person with a 1 star.
And I drink up their salty tears. It's sustaining.
They just thought it was
No, but I don't want to focus on the negative. I want to focus on the positive.
I would like to know because then we can make it better.
Yes.
You know, unless it's just, get rid of Georgia. Then I can't really make it better.
Canadians do not belong in tech. That's probably it.
Okay, I don't know how many of these am I going to do.
I don't know. Anyway.
I'll start. I'm going to start. I'll do a couple. Then I'll just, we'll go on from there. Okay. So this one is from, can I read the names?
Sure. I don't know if you can pronounce them all, but we'll try.
This one's from Barry.
Okay.
And this is favorite podcast couple.
Aww.
Since Kevin Rose and Sarah. Oh, that's a really huge
I used to work with Sarah. She was awesome.
Keep up the great work. Thank you.
Yeah. Sarah Lane. She was, we used to work on Twit. We used to work on Twit together.
I've never actually worked with Sarah.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Okay. This one is from Mojo Zemith. I hope I said that okay.
Mojo is a myth.
Yeah, you did that better.
Mitzelplick. Cripple skim. Oh no, I sent you back.
Oh no, to restart this entire thing. Love the show. It's about time we're acknowledging the effect technology has on our psychology and vice versa. Thank you both for bringing us this topic in the daylight. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's something that's coming into our brain, so obviously it's an effect on us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This is from Al Nib. Thank you. I enjoy your podcast and your YouTube channel. Thank you so very much. This is from Andre
Merrick.
Thank you.
Andre Merrick. Dre, what's up?
What more could a tech nerd ask for than Georgia Dow? Volunteer listener. Thank you. He's not the one that gave the 1 star then.
He could have for me. Would be better as solo show.
Right.
Oh, so awkward.
Okay, so this one's from volunteer listener. I already said that before, but anyways. Edge of the Dark Ages. The assessment of these times by Rene was spot on. Very nice. It compares well with something Mr. Dickens wrote. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. Also appreciated the part about the importance of critical thinking was emphasized. I'm glad I overcame some of my biases so I can listen to your discussions. Thank you very much.
So is this podcast a far, far better place they have gone to than any they've ever known?
Probably not, but maybe
it was the best of casts. It was the worst of casts.
Thank you for taking the time, effort, and energy to make this podcast more. Oh, I'm going to read one more.
Okay.
This is from Big Mac 1010. Rene, you can trust, with a whole bunch of like...
Oh, it's like, Rene, you can all caps trust. Hands in the air, heart. Oh,
lift it up. Rene is a good dude. And his work is important, and I'm grateful for all his content. Thanks, bro.
And we know that it's a Canadian or an American, not a South African, because it would have been Brew, B-R-U, instead of B-R-O.
I'll read some others next time.
Okay, awesome. So keep sending them in.
Thank you.
You too could have your review narrated by Georgia Dow.
Yeah, I know. Poorly narrated.
No, it's well narrated.
All are looking for that.
So, Georgia, people on the internet were angry. They were so angry. They were angrier than they were about any of the pandemic or politics or anything I've seen in a long time. So angry. Can I tell you why?
Yeah.
You already know why, though, right? I can say it.
Can I tell you why? Yeah. Tell me again. Tell those that do not know. Why were they
Apple put out a $550 pair of headphones.
They did.
Yes.
They did.
You do not have to buy these headphones. You don't have to like these headphones. You can think that they are a good value for the money. You can think that they're a terrible value for the money. You can think that they're overpriced. You can think that Apple is charging based on technology and not on audio quality. Or you can think they're a complete ripoff. But people were mad like Apple done smacked their mama.
I think that they were as mad as they were about the wheels.
No, because the wheels, I think, were applied to a Mac Pro, which they were not going to buy to begin with.
But I think that it did make people feel irate.
I think this was like HomePod, like the original HomePod angry.
Right.
Because the HomePod is something they want. Like the Mac Pro is sort of like, oh, you dumb content creators are buying that. I have much more value for my money. And here's your idiot wheels to go with your idiot Sunday. But I think this like struck them because they want, like, this is something people actually want.
Fair. Are we going to talk about how they look like a bra?
What? Oh, the case.
Yeah, the case looks like a purse bra.
So it looks like many things. I found this. They tell me this is a good Rorschach test for who you're talking to, because some people believe that immediately that they look like a little purse. I think that was Joanna Stern's big thing. Some people thought they looked like a bra. Some people thought they looked like a bum. I thought they looked like chaps because they have little holes in the bottom. There's like little cutouts at the bottom, and it just screamed chaps at me.
No matter what, it's a bad thing.
Yes.
Is what they look like.
Yes.
I know they're upset about the price, but it's also like, there's tons of memes of their like.
So do you want to do the price first, or do you want to do the case first?
I'd rather do the case, just because it was. If you haven't seen it, there's tons of memes out there of it on the Venus de Milo, and it, being, covering someone's butt.
Yes. And it's funny because usually Apple design is divisive. Like your favorite, the battery pack, it's just got the hump on the back. But you can say, well, it's useful because it cuts away the excess material, so the radio transparency is better, and it just basically molds over the actual physical back. Like there's some, or like the stupid thing at the bottom of the mouse. You can say like, oh, they didn't want to redesign the mouse, so they just stuck the charger literally where the back. Like I can understand how the mistake. I'm saying I can understand how the mistake happened.
Okay.
With these, I've not seen anyone able to describe it. Almost every reviewer, like even the ones who are super positive on Apple, is just like, what have you done?
Yes. And just the thought of carrying them around.
By the weak little headphone thing.
It doesn't feel right? Like when people wear their headphones and they're wearing them around their neck. That feels right. This, like, they didn't need to do this. They
carrying them around like Sarah Jessica Parker in Sex and the City, you mean?
Yeah, but they don't. Why does it have to have this fold thing to protect? Like,
it doesn't protect. That's the other thing, is like these are expensive headphones and they don't protect it. All the case does is put it into hibernation, into deep sleep, so it lasts for like a month without wasting battery. Because there's no other way to put them into sleep. So they made this whole elaborate magnetic thing that straps onto it. Like chaps, I'm going to keep saying it, or like, I don't know, the White Queen's halter top in X-Men, something like that, just to put it into sleep. And it seems like that's not a useful function for an accessory of that magnitude. And
it's just the thought of pulling them out, and no matter where you are, pulling them out and using them. I don't know. I would feel strange because it looks so purse-like. Everyone's going to assume it's a purse unless you're really techie. And then it's not.
It's European. It's European.
No, it just looks really,
and it doesn't
really
protect
strange.
them. It's like I don't understand. Like in a normal year, you'd be traveling with these, and certainly when Apple designed them, they didn't know about the pandemic. They would have assumed people are going to be traveling with these, and this offers nothing in the way of travel protection. It doesn't protect any of the actual delicate parts of the headphones.
Yeah, and again, it's still very large and bulky. They're very flat, but they don't fold.
They don't fold. No.
And folding, you could then put them into your purse, do something with them. It's
Well, they
almost
gave
like,
you the purse. You don't need to put them in your purse.
no, I still need a purse. I need a purse also to carry.
Oh, there's
the
no
purse.
pocket. Yeah.
There's no.
You need an outer purse.
Or I have to carry them around like a little purse, and then they're not. So I need another purse, and they're big.
Yeah.
So I need a large purse.
Yeah. So I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know.
I think that's
like, was this Johnny Ive? Like, he's on his way out the door, and he's like, "I'm just going to leave this doodle behind and see what happens."
I don't know who would say that that's okay.
And then they're like, "Oh, it's Johnny's last doodle. I guess we have to do it."
But they look good. Besides that,
yes,
like when
they look great.
Out of the case, they're beautiful.
Well, some people hate them. Some people think they look retro, but I like them because they look retro. They look like old timey-wimey radio.
They still are not. It's not like an eyesore where you go, "What is that?" But when I first saw it, I thought it was a joke. Like when I first saw them, I went, "Like, is someone saying that this is what they would have to make to carry them around?"
Yes.
And then I went, "Oh God, no! That's actually what they made."
It comes with
Apple. So you don't have to pay extra for it, though. At least
the charging plug you have to pay extra for.
No, are you kidding? Is that a joke?
Hold on.
Are you kidding me?
I went and looked, and almost no headphones come with a charging plug. Headphones don't come with a charging plug.
No, I'm sorry. It's not okay. If they didn't do it to us with the phone.
Yes.
And the
phone makes us notice it on the headphones.
Now I'm like, you know what?
Would it have been worse if they came with the headphones and not the phone, though?
No, at least I would feel like they're not
like
that
the HomePod
cheap.
Mini has
this
it.
goes to the price discussion that we're going to have because I think that this comes out to why people are so irate, and we'll kind of go into that.
HomePod Mini has the plug, but not the iPhone. The iPad Air has the plug, but not the iPhone, and not the AirPod. So it's almost fascinating to me what they chose or didn't choose.
It makes me angry.
So angry about the price?
I think it is expensive. I'm not going to say that I don't think that it's expensive. I can understand what Apple is trying to go through. So why don't you go through? Why don't we go into the price, Rene, and then we can go into it because I think we've...
So I think there's two issues. One is that it's not obvious what these are competing against, the way it wasn't obvious what the HomePod was competing against, because it's more expensive than a mainstream headphone. The same way the HomePod was more expensive than a mainstream speaker. It's not as expensive as high-end headphones, just like the HomePod wasn't as expensive as high-end speakers. Like you can literally spend all your money on headphones and speakers if you want. They will take it and they will come back and ask you for more money.
Yes.
But these are more expensive than the $300 or the $250, $300, $350 Bose, Sony's, all of those, even $399 ones. They're not as expensive as like the $1,000 Sennheisers or Bang & Olufsen's. But those are usually used by audiophiles as reference headsets that are deliberately flat because you want to hear everything in the music. Like if you're editing, you want to hear everything in the music. You don't want to hear like an artistic version of it. But they are more expensive than the Sony's. Now, they are made of aluminum and steel. They're like high quality materials. They do have two Apple designed 10-core audio processors, one of them in each ear. They have a plethora of sensors, things like gyroscopes and accelerometers, and they have sensors that will tell when they're on your head, but not just on and off. Cool. But if I lift it up to hear what you're saying, it'll stop and start.
That's really cool.
So they have two of those sensors in every ear, and they have 9 microphones. They have a special microphone just to stop wind noise.
That I have to say is pretty cool, though. I'm not going to be using them when you're talking on the phone, when you're outside doing a walk or a run, or you're at the park. That's when you would want that.
But they're not weather resistant, so you can't really do too much.
Wait, what?
Yeah, unlike the AirPods Pro, they don't have an IP rating.
Really?
Yeah, so they're not sweat or water resistant.
Nothing.
No.
One drop.
But they are magnetic. You can pull off one cup, put on a different cup, and you can even mix and match the colors if you want to.
I think that they should have just made it, water resistant.
I think a future one will. I think the design of these, like the mesh fabrics and stuff they use, is a little bit more challenging than the plastics that they've been using on the other stuff.
Yeah. So, Rene, do you think that they did this on purpose so that they would not compete with the Beats headphones?
Because they have their own, right? They have their own competitors.
Yes.
The Beats Studio are less expensive and do almost all the So the other thing I didn't mention is these are noise canceling. They're active noise canceling, which means they monitor and create anti-noise to destroy the ambient noise around you. But they also do a couple things that none of the other ones do. One is they have the spatial audio with head tracking, so that if you put them on and use an iPhone or an iPad that also has the same sensors, as you move, you'll move through the 3D sound space. So it sounds like Dolby Atmos, but it's dynamic. It's not static. It's like if you leave your iPad there and walk around, it'll change how you're hearing the sound. Like you're literally in that 3D world, which is really cool.
That's really cool.
And the other thing is it has adaptive EQ. So for example, if I'm listening and I'm wearing glasses and there's a little gap and some of the low end is escaping, it has a microphone that detects what your ear is hearing. And then it will modify it to overcome those sorts of things. So you always get the absolute best sound for the geometry of your ear. And those are things the other one. But it's unclear to me how much people care about those things.
I don't even know if I would notice. Like that's the thing is I don't know if I, as not being an audiophile, will notice those things. So one of the things, like the psychology of what happens, is that the reference price effect. Apple often comes out with like something that's very expensive. And so we see that thing as very expensive. And because it's very expensive, when they come out with something that's lower end, say next year, then we're like, ooh, this is a good buy because they have this expensive thing. There's also another piece to it, though. And that happens in restaurants. That happens for house sales. That happens for cars. It's kind of, they give you that shock value, when you've, whatever, you tell your parents, I crashed the car. So they're like, oh my goodness, I'm going to kill you. And then you say, no, just joking, but I did dent the wall. Yeah. And they're like, okay, it's not so bad in comparison to the stress that I had in... so we end up with a reference, and then everything else is lower than that, which makes it better. Apple has a very interesting piece, though, because we also believe that things that are priced higher are worth more. They're more valuable. Even if nothing changes, even if there's 2 items, if you have the funds, if you are able to, you will see the more expensive item sometimes as worth more and better quality.
Can I add something to that? Yeah. I heard this interview with Peloton. It was probably early last year. And people often say that Peloton is expensive or too expensive. But they actually said they came out, and I forget what the price is now, so forgive me if I get this wrong. They came out at $1,000 and didn't sell very many. They doubled the price to $2,000 and they couldn't keep them in stock. Because even though people were angry they cost that much, suddenly it seemed like it was more like exclusive.
Yes. And we do feel that way. So it can be that more expensive actually brings in more revenue and makes people look at it as this is a better quality than something else.
Yeah.
Now, the piece that Apple has to battle with is the fairness effect. And that is that if in comparison to other things, it seems like we're being gouged, that we're being nickel and dimed, that we're being squeezed for things. And so that happens a lot with gas prices because they fluctuate a lot. They go up and down and we're kind of forced into it. That we end up feeling very sensitive and upset because we're being played for a fool.
Yeah.
And that's where it comes down to the wall plug.
Yes.
Is that now Apple's being cheap with us, right? Like you're only, how many of these babies do we get now?
You get 1 on a phone now, not 2 anymore.
Like, why? Why? I don't use them, but I still noticed.
You used to get them and you don't anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like
one less sticker.
I'm, like it's a sticker. Like this is a penny, maybe less. Yet I only get 1. Yeah. Why? You could say that you're trying to get rid of plastic, like they did with the wall jack. Like at least this, if they had gotten rid of the stickers.
Oh, people would be so angry.
The wall jack. Like if they gave us just one and said this was for the environment, because there is a whole bunch of plastic, and let's be honest, like how many Apple stickers can you stick around everything?
How many bumpers do you have on your cars?
I don't put anything on my car.
No, you asked me.
Oh, fair enough. Fair. That's true.
I'm putting all of them on your car.
Oh, that'd be really bad. Trying to get it off, that would be horrible. But versus the wall plug, which we actually need. I don't have enough. I need them. Yeah. And so now we feel that, and already when Apple does something that's overpriced, but at least a beautiful value, you're like, well, at least it's a beautiful value. This is just Apple being cheap. And so now after that initial hit of Apple doing something that makes us feel like we're being squeezed for more money on a product that is already very high end in cost, then we start going, what else are you trying to grab us for? We start to be, you know what? I don't like to be played for a fool.
Well, and it feeds that, like, there's always this thing, like this ongoing narrative about the Apple tax and about Apple, charging too much. And it's interesting because you hear a lot of this in the review community where, and it's not even Apple, like you'll hear this a lot about Android phones and things as well, where a reviewer will say, it's too, like, they shouldn't be charging this much. They should be charging $200 less. And I know enough about the manufacturing process that I know it doesn't work that way. It's not like we made this, we can charge $200 less, because then those companies would be losing money, and you can't like lose it. Like, there's no amount you can sell at scale that will make you stop losing money on a product. And I think the legitimate criticism is two things. Either it's not worth it to me, I will not pay this much for it, which I think is fair. But also, it's totally the wrong product. Like, if you can't make this product, or if you can only make this product at this price, it's not a good product to make. Like, maybe you can't make it cheaper. Like, I'm willing to extend to like some, like OnePlus got a lot of pushback for making their phones more expensive, their higher end phones. Because people they made lower end phones. People said you should add these features. They added those features. The phones became more expensive. People are like, your phones aren't cheap anymore. And so now they're making them cheap again, but they're removing the features that made them expensive. People are like, but you're losing the features now. And you can't have both. So leaving that aside, one of the things that I noticed is that Apple gets the most of this grief when they only release the premium version. Like with the Apple Watch, they released the aluminum and the stainless steel. I'm not even going to talk about the gold for now. Not even going to talk about the gold.
Oh, but the gold, Rene. That was, can we talk about the gold? Because that went to people being like, yes, what are you doing?
Yes.
A $10,000 watch.
Yes.
That's firmware is eventually going to die.
Yes.
And it's not pure gold. And it came out, and in my thoughts, and I'm not saying this, but I thought that Tim was not too thrilled about it either. Like, it was like those stuff where you're like, even Tim was like, here we go.
He barely mentioned it.
I'm leaving. You do this. Yeah. This was your thing for you. But that's another one of those pieces. But at least it's kind of gold.
Yeah. No, but I think if there hadn't, like every year now, there's no more gold watch, but there's still an aluminum watch and a steel or ceramic or something watch.
And why do you think, Rene, they got rid of the gold?
Well, no, but hold on, because this is a psychology part that I'm thinking about.
Okay.
If there was only the steel watch, people would be just as angry because it's a $1,000 watch. But now they're like, I'm buying the $300 one. If you idiots want to buy the $1,000 one, that's fine. And now you can do that with the HomePod too. You can say, if you idiots want to buy the $300 one, that's fine. I'm buying the $99 HomePod Mini. I'm so much smarter than you. I'm happy. But when they only had that expensive HomePod, right, you couldn't do that. Yeah. And when they only have these expensive AirPod, like if they come out with an AirPod Max Sport that was plastic and $300 or something, then people would be like, I'm getting it. It's the same headphones. You idiots are paying more for aluminum.
That ends up with the reference price effect because you have another object that you can actually reference to the first one. Whereas now we just have, again, we end up with that fairness effect that people are dealing with, and we also deal with that reference point that there is not another thing, which forces people that may want to buy something to feel like now we're being squeezed and this is the only option that we have, and it's quite a pricey option for what I'm getting.
Yeah, like I like Apple, I have affinity for Apple, I want this, but they charged it so high that I can't afford it, and that makes me angry because, like, at least to me, it breaks that affordable luxury brand promise, where it is a premium product, but it's always been affordable to me, and when it stops being affordable to me, it feels like you betrayed that promise.
Right, and Apple's already on the not that affordable in comparison, but then they bring out some things where you're like, oh, this actually is affordable, and it's an Apple product, so we get that eliteness that Apple gets, right? That quality of price effect. And then we end up with allowing other people to get it. And the same thing now with the phones.
Yeah.
But in this case, that's why people are upset. And the purse.
Well, it reminds me too of like when there was an iPhone 10, it was okay because people would just buy the iPhone 8 and some people would spend $1,000 for the iPhone 10. But when the 10s came out, it felt like the regular iPhone was suddenly $1,000. And if you couldn't afford it, you could get like a peasant iPhone 10R or something. But then when the iPhone 11 came out, they renamed the low-end one to the 11, and the higher-end $1,000 one became the 11 Pro. And again, the perception is, I'm getting the real 11. I'm not getting like some R variant. I'm getting the real 11. If you want to overpay for the Pro version, that's fine. And that's sort of like the release valve on that brand promise. Right. And they're not doing this here. So they did sell out. Like, I mean, they're 3 months back ordered now. And that could just be that they didn't make very many. Like, it's always hard to tell. I always have these two problems in the tech industry. If someone tells me Microsoft is selling twice as many Surfaces as before, I'm always like, they sold 5. Selling 10 is selling twice as many. If you sell 1 million, you got to sell another whole million to sell twice. So like numbers and stats are different things.
And it's okay. Like, I understand that, it's just demand. Like, it's not just about, how much they made it for.
But if they only made 5 of these, it's easy to sell out. If they made 5 million, it's harder. So I don't think we can draw anything based on popularity from them selling out at this point.
No, I think that's, again, it's one of those pieces that are kind of a lie. Like, you can end up with forced scarcity just to try to.
Well, the rumor is that they couldn't start manufacturing it any earlier, so they probably just didn't have many made, and they're still making them, but it's going to take a while to catch up.
Right, fair.
But it does seem like the market, because people are having such a hard time with the market for this. The market, I think, is people who can afford it, have really high brand affinity for Apple, and want, like, they want high-end headphones, but they don't want, because there's this whole weird thing too. Maybe it's worth diving into. The whole audiophile thing is so weird, because if you were like, when Lori and Lori is like a legitimate rock star, when we would do reviews on like the AirPods or the Beats or something, someone would say, well, I'm going to wait for a real audiophile review. I'm like, this is odd, because, if Daniel Bader and I talk about 5G, no one's like, oh, I'm going to wait for a real radio technician review. Or if Sebastian DeWitt or Austin Mann and I talk about the cameras, no one's like, oh, I'm going to wait for a real imaging scientist's review. It's like, though, everyone sort of fancies themselves, but audio has this weird sort of niche culture where people fancy themselves as like a higher level ear, but no one does that with eyes or noses or anything. Like, maybe they do in the restaurant world. I don't know.
Maybe they do. They might. But I think that we all also enjoy that eliteness of being, better than in our field of what we care about things with, right? It's part of our ego. And so sometimes people take things very seriously. And because of that, they might be more picky, especially if they don't agree with what you're saying. If they agree with what you're saying, now you are suddenly the person that they're going to go to, and you're brilliant. You disagree, and then pitchforks.
Yeah. Well, actually, I got yelled at by an actual audiophile reviewer because I said, I'm looking at this product, but I'm not an audiophile, so I can only tell you what I like. And they're like, yes, that's the point. Most people aren't audiophiles. It doesn't matter what they say. Your job is to listen to it. Like, you look at the photograph. Do you like it? Why do you like it? You listen to the music. Do you like it? Why do you like it? That's the job. Not like, don't be timid about it.
I think that's a very nice thing they said.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, there's $550 headphones that are something completely new, that are really interesting to me, because it feels like computational photography. Like how they have those really terrible, they're not terrible, but like the George and I are filming this on a Canon C500 Mark II cinema camera with a 24-70 Canon, really good quality lens.
It's a beautiful lens.
Yeah. And it produces and we're recording it in 10-bit and XF AVC. I think that's the codec I'm using. I always get the letters wrong. But it's like, all of this is really high-end stuff. But what Apple and Google and other companies can get out of these tiny cell phone cameras is increasingly amazing, because they're using not big sensor, not big glass. They're using big compute. And they're starting to do that with audio now too, where you used to have to get these high-end headphones and plug them into a high-end amp, and it would cost a lot of money, and you'd be tethered down with them, and you'd have to listen to really good audio sources, not vinyl. Vinyl is fine, but I'm talking about like if you're doing all this high-end stuff anyway. And now they're doing that with audio. So they're taking their Apple Music is not great quality. Like, it's fun music, but the bit rate is not very high. It's using a lossy codec, AAC, and some people use Tidal and all those things, but they're taking this okay audio and turning it into a really rich computational experience. And I think that is, and I'm sure Google's going to do the same thing. And then that just, to me, is like, we're making your phone better. We're making your phone music better now.
So does that mean that you're going to purchase?
I had to. Yeah, I bought right away. I got blue though, and now I kind of regret it. I got blue because it matches my iPad and my phone, but I think in hindsight, I would have gotten black. I saw Justine wearing the black ones.
And they look really good.
They look fantastic.
Yeah.
And also you can get those different colored cups. And blue is not easy to, like, if I got blue and white,
you can't match them very well.
It would be the Quebec flag, which is fine.
You could match them.
Yeah.
How much are the cups?
Like, they're cheap. They're like $60 or so, or $40 for both.
Like for one color, and you have to buy.
Yeah. But like, if I'd gotten Like you can get like pink and white and it would look like the Canadian flag, or blue and white, it would look like the Quebec flag. But
Or
if
you
you
could
have like
just have different colors so you know to stick which one on which ear.
like black and red would look like Marquez.
Yeah.
I think Justine is getting pink and silver. I forget.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Yeah. So now I regret my blue purchase. So do you have any advice for people, Georgia, who might be looking at products and just emotionally having a reaction to the price? Like I know some people, when they see a really good deal, it's like, yes, I got such a great deal. But when there isn't a deal, or when something seems expensive, and whether they should buy it or not, whether they want it versus need it, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, well, I would always say, like, you want to see what's in. Just because it's out, just because it's Apple, you shouldn't just purchase it. Is this really going to be something that's necessary? Is it something that's used for your work? Are you going to make use of that? I think that we often buy because of an emotional reason instead of because of need. And for something that's this expensive, now again, you can buy much more expensive headphones. But for something that might be outside of your price range, then you really want to think about, is this going to make a difference for me? And if it is, then great, go ahead and buy it. And if it doesn't, you know that in a year or two, Apple's going to be coming out with something. It's going to be probably really good, and you can wait it out and then see. Because we often buy because we want, and it leaves us with at first you get this great effect and you feel great, but then if you're not going to use it, you look at it as all of this money that I have spent that I don't need to. And as to Apple, that reaction that we have to Apple selling something that we think is too expensive, like it is, like whatever they will try to make as much profit out that they can. And that is the way that it goes. If you don't like it, then don't purchase it. And that gives a signal to Apple.
Yeah.
And, Apple will eventually probably release something that's cheaper and try to go down in price. But the best way that we can talk about it is with our pocketbook. Ranting about it and then buying it gives us really bad mixed message. So, that's the way that you can really make a stand.
And I think there's also a lot of pressure if you're involved in like the tech community on Twitter and things to get like them as fast as possible. Post your pictures because then you have it before somebody else doesn't. And there's all sorts of self-identification and ego, bonding that goes on with that sort of thing. And then it can get you to spend more than you would otherwise just because you want to be. It reminds me of like a long time ago on one of those cable news shows, must have been 10 years ago. It was like this billionaire street somewhere in Silicon Valley. And one of the billionaires was getting his McLaren F1 delivered, and it was like one of the first ones in America, and all the other billionaires were coming out to see it. And like he did it just so that all the other billionaires would have to come out and see that he got the supercar they didn't have yet. And like it just never ends.
Yeah, there's always going to be something else.
Yeah. All right, so from a fun but infuriating topic to just a simply infuriating topic. It is unclear to me exactly what happened. Like there's been a lot of talk about this, but I don't know that it's clear we know everything about it yet, like especially what was going on behind the scenes at Google. But I think it's fair to say that, I'm going to pronounce her name wrong. I know it. It's Timnit Gebru?
Yeah, Gebru.
Gebru. Okay. So she was hired on to Google to do research on the ethics of artificial intelligence and machine learning. And just as a background to this, there are a lot of issues surrounding this technology because for a long period of time, it was created by white males. And a lot of assumptions were made just based on that. So like facial recognition was trained primarily on white people, primarily on white males. So like when Google launched photos, they had a really hard time identifying the facial features of black people. And even more recently on Twitter, people have been posting like a black person and a white person, and the Twitter algorithm will almost always only show the white person in the sample card.
Right.
And they've tried everything, like different clothing, different everything. But there's a lot of issues about how machine learning has been created. Yeah. It was created with the point of view of the people creating it initially. And we also, a couple of years ago, we saw John Gianandrea, who was head of search at Google, leave. He did a series of talks on the ethics of AI, and then he left Google, surprisingly, and went to Apple because he thought that was the place where he could build artificial intelligence in a way that was in keeping with his ethics. And I thought at the time that was a condemnation for Google, but it didn't really make too many ripples. But now, and please correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is that Timnit Gebru, and I'm going to keep saying this name wrong, and I apologize, was working on a paper that was one of the papers about some of the biases in machine learning. And it sounds like not her direct manager, but like her manager's manager was upset about this and didn't want her name or Google's attached to the paper. And then she said, okay, if I have to leave over this, let's have a conversation and I'll give you my list of things of what I would need and what my team would need to make, and then at that point I'll resign. And while the manager was away, this manager's manager just basically said, we accept your resignation, and turned everything off. And to me, that's essentially a firing at that point.
Yes. And she states that she was fired. Yep. They state that no, she resigned and we accepted your resignation. She said she was going to do that after this was done, and they said no right away. And it seems like it was really a poor, like all the way around from Google's standing, it was very poorly handled because, one is she's one of the top in her field.
Yeah.
There's very few women, there's very few Black women that are in this field. And it also highlights the amount of control that when a company is funding research, how much control do they have over that research? And then it puts a negative light. So everyone else that was working on research for Google kind of gets shaded by this negative light of how do we really trust what your review states?
Yeah.
And how much is that has been massaged to be more positive towards Google. And then from last week's video, if you saw it, about apologies,
yes,
Sundar Pichai did release a acknowledgement.
The CEO of Google.
Yes.
Yeah.
An acknowledgement of this. I can't even. Would this you
upset
consider
you?
it?
It's like it's those apologies we talked about, where it's like, I'm not sorry for what I've done. I'm sorry that it upset you.
Yes, it was pretty much. I'm sorry that this bothered you, right?
Yeah.
And that, and I wonder on his part though that it was more about a legal standing. He didn't
imagine.
Specifically, I would assume that is, I don't fully blame him for this. I think that he did as much as he could to try to stem the flames of people's anger. I don't know if he knew about this firing beforehand or didn't, because I would assume if any of the higher-ups, they would have said, this is a horrible way to handle this. This is going to be a PR nightmare.
Let's try sound effect.
Let's not do this.
But the thing, you raise a good point there, because like one of my favorite Devon Stone Legal Eagle videos is the one where he looks at the reggae song. I'm blanking on the name of it, but the guy's like, you caught me in the shower, you caught me red. He's like, no, don't admit anything.
Yes,
never
really
admit anything. And Sundar is not admitting anything here, but there's a couple things. Like one is, if they had let this go, it would have been good PR for them, because her name and Google's name being attached to this would have shown that they understand the responsibility that comes with this field.
And it would have went away.
Yes.
We would have seen, let's be honest, we're talking about this only because she was fired or let go of before she wished to be, depending on, who you're standing with. And because of that, we're all reading about it. And because of that, we're looking at this. So it's gotten that Streisand effect that would have never happened had they just released it. And if they had released it, even if it is more negative towards what they've been doing, people would have said, you know what, they really care.
Yes, it would have bought credibility.
They really care. They're trying to do something different. Look at them, really trying to own the things that we already know about AI and its importance. And this is something that's going to be changing when there's cameras everywhere, which is almost already. Yep. This is going to be really important about, how misleading is this information, how controlling is this information.
So there's this other theory that's going around lately, not just about Google, but about big tech companies in general, because they do seem to be doing things that aren't in their best interest and that will get out. But the thought is, and this might be a conspiracy theory, I don't know if it is, that they're doing it deliberately to cause a chilling effect.
Yeah,
that they know it's going to come out. Yeah, they know it's going to come out, and they're going to look a little bit bad, but it's a warning to everybody else. So, she's just a person they chose to make an example of. Yeah. But now everybody knows that if you're at Google and you don't toe the line on faux ethics in AI, you're next.
Yeah.
And that's worth it for them to even to go through this.
Yes, be careful. And that's the thing with whistleblowers, is that they get, there's supposed to be protections in place to be able to keep people that are saying that you're doing something illegal or wrong safe. But it does not happen. And so because of that, you pay a huge price, right? She lost a job with a prominent company, and has to deal with all of this horrible press. And let's just say it, the internet is really horrific right now. If you do not, if you're, again, really pro Google, some people would be very angry and send emails and texts and deal with that. And so this probably will have that effect on other people that are thinking that how do I feel about this? The interesting piece is that in this case, I think it was 1,000, but I might be wrong. Researchers have signed a petition
which
of standing.
Isn't as many as I would have hoped, though. At the same time, it's a large number.
They were all at Google, though. And
no, they weren't.
Know.
I think there was a bunch of people at Google too, but it seems like a small number for Google. And the thing it was a couple of things that worried me about this. This was specifically done for ethics, and Google to me is the most important.
It's more done to ethics. Yeah.
Well, but Google to me is the most important company in the world because they're building the Star Trek computer.
Yes.
Which is the future that a lot of us really want.
Depending on how you look at it.
No, but I just mean in general, they're putting together all these systems that there is a large probability that we'll be dependent on in the future, which means they have to be held to an incredibly high standard. I love Apple's phones. I cringe at Facebook these days. Amazon is super convenient, but I think Google really, when we look at Star Trek, the idealized future, Google is the one that is building technologies that are going to power it.
Yeah.
Apple will just make it look nice after.
Yes.
And so to me, the standard is so high, but they keep being arrogant about the what's the word? The price of their technology. It's like that old Jurassic Park thing. You're so busy trying to see what you can do, you never stop and think whether you should do it.
Yeah.
And to me, it goes back to when they announced that Google Voice system where it would call and make appointments for you. And they just announced it like any other product. They at no point announced it at the beginning of a conversation because it's so important. Is it fair to just have a computer call up and talk to someone without telling them that it's a computer? But if you're, for example, mute and this is your voice, should you have to disclose that it's your voice? You don't have to tell people you have a fake leg if you have a fake leg or a prosthetic or something. You're not supposed to disclose that. It raises all of these issues, self-driving cars and who's responsible for accidents. And all of these things are brand new ethics for us. And they approach it with such arrogance and lack of simple human compassion and consideration over and over and over again. Everybody makes mistakes all the time, but at a certain point, it's a pattern of behavior.
Yes, and that's how we know it's no longer a mistake, because it keeps on getting repeated. And when Google came out and said, everyone's really worried about what happens with our review process, so we're going to illuminate a little bit of what happens underneath the curtain. And they didn't.
Yes.
But there was one statement that I went, okay, this is very telling of what happens. And they said, Google has a central dedicated team that reviews proposals for AI research and applications for alignment with our principles. And so I went, okay, not alignment with the truth, but alignment with Google's principles. So if it doesn't, go to Google. And this is what Google released. Wait, I will get the name.
I should also point out that the person who used to be involved with all this said that all of the stuff that Google claimed she didn't follow was never followed. Everyone was always working past deadlines. Nobody ever had a chance to look at anything that was going up. Everything that they said was categorically, well, I can't say false, but categorically ignored in the process. So this was by no means any different than any of the other things that they had gone through.
No. And yet this one.
Yeah, this one they wanted to put a bullet in.
Yeah. And they did. And now we're getting at least to talk about it.
Yeah. So what do you think, Jojo? Because you've been involved, you've done a lot of research, you've done a lot of these things. How do you, it used to be the universities, and it used to be and now it's the businesses.
And Google specifically said that they want to be larger than the scientific journals. They want to overtake this field as well. Because once you own the message, you can control the message. And then you can make sure that it's aligned with your principles. So whenever I read research, so one of the categories that we go through in looking at research is who's funded it. You specifically look at if, Coca-Cola, which this has actually happened, is funding the research on sugar and its effects on the body. Mm-hmm. And since they have a biased, intent, they want you to be able, they actually paid some of the people that dealt with the Food and Drug, I don't know if it was the FDA or if it was anyways, it was somewhere in the food industry that was coming out with that, what you should eat, the daily restrict. And they actually said, well, one or two Cokes a day or a week are okay. where, the research didn't actually say that.
Yeah.
And they kind of like squashed any of the research that did show that, less sugar is better to a certain state. So you want to take a look at who's funding it, because if you have a bias, then you're going to want to, and all of us do this.
Yeah.
We kind of turn a blind eye to the things we don't want to see, right? Like that closet that you didn't want to clean, you probably have closed it. You just don't want to see it. It disappears from view, and that seems nicer and neater. So I'm not just saying that this is something that's bad, at Google. Though when they got rid of the "don't be evil," that was a sign.
Yes.
That was a sign, because why would you get rid of that unless...
Well, no, but it seems like, again, Google keeps doing, right now they have problems with unions. They have problems with, I forget what it was, but it was over scrutinizing their employees. It was like some kind of weird surveillance system to see if their employees are being productive enough.
The same thing like when they're now releasing find out when your packages have arrived at your door. Well,
it's just a bunch of things. No, it's a bunch of quote unquote mistakes that when you look at them, it just, because the whole thing in the tech community was been this narrative, yes, Facebook got caught doing all these evil things. Google does these evil things too, but Google's not as evil about it as Facebook is. Google enjoys a credibility and a positivity, a vibe with tech fans that Facebook doesn't. We'll dunk on Facebook all day, but Google's I feel like Google is valuable. I don't mind them snooping through my mail because I think they're valuable. I don't mind them hoovering up all my photos because they're giving me a service. Where Facebook was always just what are you really giving me in exchange for all this? But increasingly, Google doesn't seem to respect that. And they seem to be doing things that are more and more overtly hostile. And I keep wanting to because Larry and Sergey are probably long gone by now, but I just want to look at Sundar and say, what kind of company do you want to be? What kind of person do you want to be? What kind of legacy do you want to live? Do you want to be the company that turns us into Star Trek, or to your point, turns us into Skynet? These are human choices. You don't have to react this way to research. You don't have to, the whole thing with covering up for Andy Rubin and for a bunch of, I don't want to get on a tangent, but there were some really gross things happening in Google, and they paid to cover it up. And what kind of company do you want to be? And I think they need to decide that. And if they don't, we need to decide how much we want to be involved with them.
And then what do we do?
Yeah.
When companies grow this large, they have a ton of power, which then makes the onus on their responsibility even greater. And we've already shown that companies cannot police themselves.
Yeah.
So we end up in this really difficult place where I fully understand Sundar wanting to make the most money and do the coolest stuff. And it's easier to not ask those questions because that slows you down.
Yeah. Well, that was a Zuckerberg thing, right? It's I'm going to go into this point where people are truly disgusted with me, pull back a tiny bit, wait for them to forget, and then run ahead again.
Yes, which is what his apology seemed like.
Yes.
I'm just going to I'm going to say we're going to look into it, and
Yes.
hopefully you will all forget it.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then I'll send another apology.
And I have this, sorry, I'll apologize again. I have this theory that any company sufficiently large is indistinguishable from evil, just because as the amount of customers grow, the ability for you to be in alignment with all of them shrinks.
Yeah.
You'll never be able to do everything for every person. And the more people you add to that, the less your ability to do those things. And some of them will, by necessity, regard you as evil because you cancel the product they like, or you're aligned, or you do something else they don't. There's just a higher likelihood. But you should never lean into that. That shouldn't be your guiding principle.
Shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But
so where do you see this going, George? Do you think we're going to forget about it when the next outrage happens?
unfortunately, usually we do, right? These news cycles, there's so much happening. It's hard to really notice. There's only one is it's a huge overhead on our mental load. With all of the other things that are happening, this becomes very difficult. And we get upset and then we forget about what happens. The company has acted better for a period of time. They give us things that we want, and then we forgive them because us, just like the companies, it's in our best interest to be able to, so that I can check my Gmail and I can go
upload
online
YouTube
and
videos.
And we don't feel like horrible people.
And where do I go if I don't use YouTube? Facebook? I mean,
Oh,
there's antitrust going on against Google and against Facebook now. That's a new development, the Facebook part of it.
yeah.
They want to break Facebook. They want to take Instagram and WhatsApp out of Facebook.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. which I don't think is a practical remedy.
I just don't know what will it change really.
No, if they don't regulate nothing, you'll just have 3 mini Facebooks. It's like it smacks me of like the AT&T. Like they broke up Bell, and that didn't create a bunch of competition. And now we have AT&T is just like put them all back together again.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the browser ballots in the EU. All it did is hand domination of web browsers to Chrome. It didn't change anything.
Yeah.
So I think they have to be really careful. But the thing that struck me, and I know this is a tangent, so I apologize. The thing that struck me is that Mark Zuckerberg did everything he could to appeal to I'm not even going to say it's political people, because it's not politics at this point, it's conspiracy theorists. There are normal politicians on both sides, but there's a specific, like, crazy contingent of conspiracy theorists. He did everything he could to pander to them, like, and they still put him through this. Like, they're still going to break up his company. So, Mark, you got nothing out of this. You betrayed democracy, user trust, decency, and you're still under antitrust investigation now.
I think his billions of dollars are going to make him feel okay, though.
Maybe.
I think he
wants billions more, though.
I don't think he's in that much distress.
No, we'll see.
I don't think his face would even show it.
You'll see. I mean, we'll see. But I think it's sort of like, I think he is the type, even in his robotic shell, that understands the tarnishing of a legacy. We'll see. All right. So we still have two topics. We have our topics for Nebula. So if you're listening on Nebula, that'll be coming right up. If you aren't yet, you can just head on over to curiositystream.com/AppleTalk and sign up for Curiosity Stream, because they have a heck of a deal going on right now. And when you do that, you also get a Nebula account for free. And you can find Apple Talk there with no ads and with our bonus segments. You can find my videos there with no ads, and a bunch of them have extras where I have like longer interviews with people, and then just a ton of originals and other really great content. So make sure you check that out. But for people who are leaving us now, Georgia, where can they find out more about you?
You can send me an email. It's Georgia@Westmount Therapy. If you're dealing with anxiety, depression, or wanting to deal with sleep issues or boundaries and consequences, you can check out anxiety-videos.com. And on Twitter, I'm at Georgia_Dow.
And I am at Rene Ritchie on everything. So, I deleted. I didn't tell you I deleted the Instagram app, and
no,
yeah, I deleted TikTok a while ago. I deleted LinkedIn. I deleted Instagram.
You deleted Instagram?
I don't know if I'll keep it deleted, because now we're going to be doing a bunch of stuff where we try to cut up the videos and maybe put them on Instagram. So I might have to put it back. But I've been a week without Instagram.
How is that?
It's fine. I don't know what all the Marvel celebrities are doing, because that's basically what I followed on Instagram. But I'll be talking about that more in the bonus topic anyway. But yeah, youtube.com/Rene Ritchie, twitter.com/Rene Ritchie, both those places. Thank you so much for watching or listening. You can watch, of course, anytime at youtube.com/Apple Talk Show. We have our vanity URL now.
Oh, nice.
Or you can just listen on your podcast client of choice. And if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, please do leave a rating. We got to overcome that one person left us 1 star.
I know, please.
I know. That's like all 5 stars except for that one person.
I know. That one hurts.
Yeah.
That one hurts.
No, I just feel sorry for them. Their 1-star life.
No, I'll be honest.
But do leave a review, do leave a rating, and Georgia might read it in a future show.
Yes, exactly. I will.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And over to Nebula.